What's up, PGF Nation? We are back with our NFL season over-under win totals predictions. We're going to start with the AFC, but before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out when we drop our NFC predictions coming soon. Alex is back from vacation. Lots of teams to get to. Let's kick this off, Alex. I want to start in the AFC East. Let's start with the team that's really running this division, the Buffalo Bills. Look, this is a Bills team that's gone over its win total in 8 straight seasons. That's the longest active streak of any team in the NFL. Josh Allen, he's really developed into arguably the most unstoppable quarterback in the NFL. I think the division has gotten worse. No reason to think this team doesn't keep rolling. Josh Allen has also won 10 or more games in every season since he started in Buffalo. The over-under win total is 11.5. I know that's a big total, but I don't really know who gets in their way as far as this division, so I think there's a lot of easy wins for them. I'm going to take the over 11.5 for the Bills.
I'm going to take the under. And as we start to go through the East, you'll start to figure out why I'm taking the under.
Okay, well, we're off to an interesting take. Actually, I take that back. You always take the under on the Bills. What am I talking about?
I know, right? Listen, I'm off the Bills, I guess, after the last, about 2 or 3 seasons in a row. I've been saying they're not going to make it. I'm off of that. They're going to make it, but it's not going to be over. I'm going to take the under, yeah. But they'll make the playoffs. You won't hear that from me. I'm saying, I think I said this last year. I wasn't going to do it. Then we got some place in the season that said they're not making a playoff.
Let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. This team feels like a mess right now. I don't like the vibes I'm getting out of Miami. I don't trust this team. They don't beat good teams. They don't win in bad weather late in the year. They've become one of the youngest teams in the league this season. A lot of new faces. I think McDaniel could be gone after the end of this year. I really don't have a lot of faith in this team. I'm going to take the under 7.5 wins for the Dolphins.
I have them at that 7/8 win mark where they can probably steal one from the Jets or maybe sweep the Patriots, however you want to look at it. And it's interesting adding Darren Waller, who is a dynamic player, and with Mike McDaniels, who knows how to use the tight end and can get him in. And that type of player that's a stretch tight end, they can tend to use him probably a little bit more than they use Jonnu Smith because when he was healthy and was a consistent player. But 7-8 is right because I do think they're going to have a problem in that running game. We love Devin Achane, but especially from a fantasy perspective, but you can't count on him. The number one injury perspective being the quarterback, the most important position on that team at the moment. Not the best player, but the most important. It's going to be interesting. So 7-8, 7.5. Give me the under.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I don't like the comments that I heard from Tua this week talking about Tyreek Hill. There's clearly some dysfunction with this team right now. So, yeah, like I said, just not really liking the vibes coming out of Miami. Let's move to the New England Patriots. I think this is an interesting team. I love the offseason moves. I think you did too. We talked about their draft and some of the free agency moves they made earlier this year. I think it could be one of the most improved teams on paper, certainly. And I think they also had a pretty good NFL draft class coming in. Side note here, keep an eye on rookie wide receiver Kyle Williams. I really, really like this kid. I'm already reading some reports from the beat writers that he's really looking good this offseason. So a guy I saw play live in college, I think is an impact guy for this offense. Obviously, they got a big upgrade at the coaching. So over 8.5 wins for me, Alex. I think this is a team that could get to 9 wins and be in contention for a wild card. And I think that could really surprise some people. But I like New England this year.
I'm going to agree with you on the over. You'll know why when we start talking about this last team there. You look for Drake May to take the next step. I think the key here is what they did on the offensive line. We know David Andrews retired. You brought in Garrett Bradbury. You drafted Will Campbell. Cole Strange is a holdover from the previous regime. And then Mike Anuwu. And you bring in the stalwart Morgan Moses. Despite what anybody may think about Morgan Moses is a stalwart. He's a plug and play player. He did have some injuries, I believe, last year for the Jets. He's going to be there. I'm not too worried about the defense because the coach is going to handle the defense, and they have some players there. This is all about the development of Drake May taking those next steps into the future. But as of now, I'm going to give them the over.
Now, last team in the AFC East here, the New York Jets. Justin Fields at quarterback, 3 different teams in the last 3 seasons. Look, I don't trust this guy at quarterback. I don't think he does anything for them. Bears, Steelers, now the Jets. He's just never shown to me that he can be a legit starting quarterback in this league. I don't think that changes all of a sudden in New York, but I have huge question marks about the offensive side, and I think this still is a team with a lot of holes. Last season, they had a win total of 9.5. I'll admit, I thought that they could be a team that would surprise people. They clearly didn't. They finished 5-12. This year, the over-under is 6.5. I'm going to take the under. I really don't like the Jets to do anything this year.
Some of the things that we thought they would do, they didn't do. We thought they would go after a tight end. They didn't. The offensive line should be good if you believe in what we got out of Fashanu last year. The offensive line should be better. So that trio of Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis, perhaps they lean more on the run game, but they really don't have a lot of weapons. They re-signed Garrett Wilson, as I'm looking, Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, and Alan Lazard. So there's not a lot of weapons there. There's not a tight end there as an outlet. So this really seems like a run-heavy team. But they've hit in the first round on defense for the past 5 years. They haven't missed. So that defense, if Aaron Glenn knows anything, he does know defense. But when you talk about Justin Fields having that injury, I'm going to have to take the under here as of today.
AFC North. Let's start with the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens have gone over their win total in back-to-back seasons. Like I mentioned about Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson is also in his prime right now and playing at the peak of his powers. This was the number 1 offense in the NFL last year, the number 7 defense in the NFL, one of the most complete teams in the league. I don't think anything changes this year for them as far as being a machine that just rolls through the AFC and should absolutely be in the Super Bowl conversation. But their win total is 11.5, and I really went back and forth on this. I'm going to go under just slightly. I still think they're a very good team, and I think they're in the mix for one of the top seeds, but I'll go under for the Ravens, but I think this team's dangerous.
Yeah, I'm actually going to, I'm with you on the under. I think that defense, I'm going to be very interested to see what that defense looks like. You bring in Malachi Starks. Kyle Hamilton has seemed to take the leap into elite status. This is going to be a contract year for him where he could probably end up at the end of the season being the highest paid safety in NFL history. They added Jair Alexander. If that guy decides to stay healthy with those 2 safeties, that pass rush is going to be able to do something. So that under, even though we're saying under, we're just saying under because it's going to be a tough division, not necessarily they're a bad team. It's just a tough division. That's the new black and blue division. Before you move on, let me ask you a question. How much longer do you think Derrick Henry can operate at this level? And I'm not saying 1900 because that's an anomaly, but let's just say 13 to 1500. How much longer do you think he can last at that level?
Well, Alex, if you remember going into last season, I was selling all my Derrick Henry stock. And that's just because I thought it was inevitable that this guy's going to run out of gas here. At his age, with all the wear and tear, the fact that he's a physical bruising running back as well, I never imagined he would age like this. I never imagined he would be at this level this late in his career. We know the history of running backs, especially big physical running backs. What he's doing at this age is unprecedented. I thought it was over last year. I thought last year that they were getting him and it was going to be more of those moves that looked good on paper but wouldn't actually pan out, and I was dead wrong. So I'm not going to bet against Derrick Henry anymore. At some point, he's going to start showing his age. I mean, Father Time is undefeated, but I'm not going to bet on it anymore because this guy just is not slowing down. So let's shift to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this offseason has been a hot mess. I don't know what is going on in Cincinnati right now. Not a single positive vibe that I can count coming from this organization. They can't get out of their own way. They might have the worst defense in the entire NFL this year. I don't think Al Golden was an upgrade at defensive coordinator. Burrow and those weapons, look, they're great, but they can't win 38-35 every week. So give me the under 9.5 wins. I think it's a similar story to last year where it's a whole lot of fireworks, but this is a one-sided football team in a really deep conference. So I could see them in that 8-win range, 9-win range, and just trying to scrap and claw into the playoffs again.
What? Give me the over. Mario, you convinced me, and if it doesn't work, this is your fault. Brad knows what I'm talking about here. I'm gonna take the over here. It's amazing. To your point, I'm in agreement with what you're saying. But to the point that this week they re-signed Jamar Chase, they re-signed T. Higgins, they also re-signed Mike Gesicki, and then they kicked the tires on Noah Fant. So they're just they're tripling and quadrupling down on the offense here. And to be honest with you, I think this is a playoff team. but it's something that you brought to my attention. This Bengals team and playoff situation, I think, truly lies solely on Zach Taylor's shoulders, right? They always start out, you brought it up, you talked about how they always start out slow, they look sloppy, and then we've seen some of the, I don't want to say it was hard knocks, I'm not sure what I was looking at, where Joe Burrow was kind of like going crazy, like, yo, what are we doing out here? And it looks like there's a lot of dysfunction going on. I'm not sure what game it was, what week it was, rather, when he was making those comments, but there's clearly a disconnect between not necessarily the quarterback, but the team and the head coach. They're facing an uphill battle. So it's going to be a lot of college, old school, Big 12 shootouts in order for them to win. But I'm still, with all that being said, I'm still taking the over on the Bengals, and it'll be a reason when we talk about these next two teams.
Yeah, Cleveland Browns. The Browns only won 3 games last season. They had a projected win total of 8.5. So they were a big, big disappointment from what Vegas thought that they could be. They had the second worst point differential in the entire NFL last year. Horrendous. The quarterback room is a mess. You either have guys that are washed up, a veteran who, quite frankly, is not at the level of a starter, or a rookie under center. That's your only options. It's a total mess. I'm sure they're going to lose a whole bunch of games, and then they're going to have to go to the rookie because the heat's going to crank up on Stefanski, which is really unfortunate because I think he's a good coach. But their win total is 5.5, and I'm going to take the under. I think this is a team that is picking in the top 5 in the draft in April. And if one of these rookies doesn't show them something, and I'm not talking about wins, I just mean show them something at the position, there's a good chance that they're drafting a quarterback again near the top of this draft in April.
Yeah, and even some of the draft picks are a mess. I mean, Quinshaw Judkins just got arrested on domestic violence, if I'm not mistaken, a guy that they were going to be counting on. Obviously, the terrible injury to Nick Chubb has kind of derailed his career. He's no longer on the team. Jerome Ford is a journeyman, but a good backup. They were probably looking to Quinshaw Judkins to really do some things. The defense does have some guys. We have to talk about our guy that we talk highly about, Mason Graham, sitting him next to Myles Garrett. That could be something interesting. But it's to your point about the quarterback room, it's kind of all over the place. I mean, if you ask Bill Parcells, he thinks having 2 good quarterbacks is a good problem. If you go back to his days, they had some weapons in Jerry Jeudy, Deontay Johnson. Njoku is a guy there. I love Harold Fenton Jr. as a guy. They're probably going to move on from Njoku after this year. Harold Fenton is a guy that can coach up. I love the coach. I think with everything between ownership and his team, he's handled it masterfully. But if this team is picking in the top 5 again, I think he's going to have a problem, even though I believe they gave him a new contract. This is the first 8 games. Cincinnati, at Baltimore, Green Bay, at Detroit, Minnesota, at Pittsburgh, Miami, and at New England. We could be either looking at Shador or Dylan Gabriel as a starter, because that they could really only see themselves perhaps being, 8 games, being 2-6 by the bye week. Here comes Shador or Dylan Gabriel. Or even if it is Shador, Dylan Gabriel could be right behind him because he's probably going to have a short hook, or vice versa. Dylan Gabriel's going to have a short hook.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, look, that's the big storyline, of course. I think he's clearly an upgrade at quarterback, but I don't think it's enough to make a big difference. I really don't. Not at this point in his career. The defense is what worries me. This defense fell apart down the stretch last year, and it just got older this offseason, and then they add some more older veterans to this team. When your best 2 players on defense are above 30, it starts to make me worry a little bit. As much as I love TJ Watt, as much as I love Cam Hayward, those guys have been basically Hall of Fame level players, but how much longer can they play at that level? And with a lot of aging pieces around them, no legit wide receiver 2. I have serious doubts about this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Now, look, Mike Tomlin is a first ballot gold jacket guy, no doubt about it. But I think the streak finally ends for Tomlin here. Under 8.5 wins for Pittsburgh. I don't think they're awful, but I don't think they reach the levels that they were hoping for when they made these moves.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is going to be not necessarily the quarterback, but the weapons on offense, right? You go and you trade for DK Metcalf. Well, I was hoping that they could stay together because I would love to see how many penalties he and George Pickens would have racked up as wide receivers. But then it thins out after DK Metcalf. Old Robert Woods, good player when he was healthy. We'll have to see what Roman Wilson is from Michigan, how he is able to perform and bounce back. Calvin Austin Jr., who's really a 9-route guy, fast, but he's a 9-route guy. You bring in Jonnu Smith, you have Pratt Firebooth. Now, I think the key here is going to be the relationship between Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers. We know Aaron Rodgers can do Aaron Rodgers type things regardless of the coach. So let's get that straight. It's regardless if it's a Hall of Fame level coach, a Super Bowl winning coach. Aaron Rodgers is a guy that kind of really truly doesn't care. I think Mike Thomas squeaks out another winning season before they just completely blow everything up.
Let's shift to the AFC South here. Houston Texans. Houston is a team that's gone 10-7 each of the last 2 seasons. They won the AFC South in both those years. They should have, I think, a top 10 defense again this year. Now, the big question for me is the offensive line. It was awful last year, and it's really a big reason why C.J. Stroud kind of took a step backwards because he was under a lot of pressure, and this is a guy who has some mobility, but look, he's a true pocket guy. He's a guy that thrives with a timing, rhythm-based offense. He wants to sit in the pocket and throw darts, and when he doesn't have the protection to do that, we're going to see him struggle. And this year, I think we could be looking at an offensive line that just got worse, especially losing their best offensive tackle. Now, I like the kid they drafted out of Minnesota, but he's a rookie. So it's hard to say he's going to be able to come in and play at the level of Laramie Tunsil right away. I think that's what scares me the most about this team is being able to protect C.J. Stroud so that this offense can play at a high enough level to really match what the defense is going to be able to do. Their over-under win total is 9.5. I'm going to take the under. By no means do I think this is a bad football team, but to go over means 10 wins, and that might be tough. So I'm going to take them for a team that's probably right in the 8 to 9 win range for the Texans.
I like the kid Jaden Higgins. I like Christian Kirk. If Christian Kirk is back fully from his injury, that's a nice addition. They lost Tank Dell. They're going to lose him again this year. He's not going to play this year. And then obviously Stephon Diggs played a little bit but then got hurt. But you bring in Jaden Higgins, a guy that we talked about during the draft process, and Christian Kirk, a guy who's interchangeable between the slot and the outside. Actually, I think both of them, between Higgins and Kirk, they can be interchangeable on the outside. But you're right, that offensive line is going to be everything. Specifically, you talk about, I believe they added, Bayutowski, defensive tackle from Jacksonville. They also added C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a guy that's a kind of a Swiss Army knife guy back there in the backfield. They have DBs for days. You've got Stingley, you've got Jalen Reed, you've got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you've got Kalen Bullock, you've got Jimmy Ward, you've got the rookie Kwame Lassiter out of Georgia from last year, and you have Jalen Petrie. So that secondary can hold up. This defense is really going to have to hold tight until that offensive line can gel. And you also, not only the offensive line, they also brought in a new offensive coordinator as well. Though from the same tree, from what he already learned, it's still a new play caller.
Let's shift to the Jacksonville Jaguars here. This was the team that was 26th in defense last year, 24th on offense, bad on both sides of the ball. Maybe that's why they took a guy that plays both ways. Rookie head coach Liam Cohen is there to save Trevor Lawrence. I mean, let's make no mistake about it. That's why they brought this guy in, similar to what he did with Baker Mayfield and his development. They're hoping he can come over and really resurrect this guy's career because we know the talent is there. We all saw the potential coming out of Clemson, but it just hasn't been fully unlocked yet. And I think they're running out of patience, and they're really hoping that this is the guy that can kind of get him on track and playing like a franchise quarterback. Now, they have some pieces in place on both sides of the ball, and we've had 2 really smart NFL writers on the podcast recently that both like Jacksonville this year. They both thought Jacksonville was a team that could overachieve. I think the offensive line needs to also play better. It's not all on Lawrence. I don't want to completely crush him, but the O-line hasn't been great. But with all that being said, I can't believe I'm about to say this, Alex. I'm going to take the over 7.5 wins. 7.5 is still a little low. I think they can get to 8 wins here. I'm not going to go much above that, but I think they can get just over that 7.5. What do you think?
No, I know Liam Cohen was part of the salvation that we saw in Baker Mayfield last year, throwing 41 touchdowns. But Baker Mayfield cares about football. Like, he really likes playing this game. And that's been one of the things. Our questions around Trevor Lawrence have never been about ability or skill set. It's really been about, do you really care about this game? Because the mistakes that we've seen, the famous one on a 4th down play, a play to get his team into the playoffs, he threw the ball away. That's a mental lapse. Like, the level and grade that this kid had coming out of college, you can't make mistakes like that. And then you look at their first 7 games, Okay, you want to give them Carolina Panthers? Well, that's going to be an interesting team to talk about when we get there. But you talk about then they go at Cincinnati, Houston, at San Francisco, Kansas City, Seattle, and the Rams. This is a team that could really truly open up 1-6 if you want to give them the Carolina Panther game, which I don't even want to give them the Carolina Panther game because I'm going to have some interesting things to say about them on our next episode. But Cincinnati's going to put up some points, and we don't know if they can match them. Obviously, Houston is going to be Houston. San Francisco is going to be a rebound team. I can't wait to talk about them. Kansas City Chiefs are still Kansas City regardless, and Seattle's just going to be well coached and tough, and then the Rams are going to be well coached and tough as well. So they could be 1-6 by week 8 and trying to figure out what is going on here. Let's be clear, Brad. This is the second reclamation coach that they brought in to help Trevor Lawrence. They brought in Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson looked like he had it going somewhere, then it fell off. And now you bring in Liam Cohen. If Liam Cohen starts off and then goes nowhere, at some point, when are the fingers going to start to point towards, it's you, Trevor Lawrence? It's not these coaches. It's you.
I'm just going to go out on a limb. You're taking the under?
Yeah, I'm going to take the under.
Yeah. Let's get to the Tennessee Titans here before we move out of this division. Titans have finished under 500 for 3 straight seasons. It's really gone off the rails for them the last few years in this rebuild. Obviously, we know they're bringing Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick. I think he's the guy that should give this offense a spark. I mean, the offense was terrible. It was one of the worst in the league last year. I think it was 31st overall, so really, really bad on that side of the ball. But here's the thing. Even though I like Cam Ward and I think he should give them something, rookies usually don't win a lot of games. Really underwhelming wide receiver room. The offensive line is, I'll just say, okay, not great. And outside of those 2 D tackles up front, there's not a whole lot to get excited about on defense either. But with all that being said, Alex, I'm going to take the over 5.5 because I just think that's a really low win total. So I think they get to 6 wins. I think they get just over the 5.5. I think there's value there.
The Tennessee Titans are an anomaly to me. Like, I'm not too sure about the coaching. I like Cam Ward, but like you said, what about the weapons? I mean, they're top heavy in terms of Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett, but everything else I'm not sure about. The offensive line, I think they're starting to gel a little bit. Bill Callahan is a really good offensive line coach. You got Skronsky there. You got J.C. Latham there. If J.C. Latham can show that he can stay at right tackle, because I still think he's a guard, but we'll see. If he is like Skronsky was a tackle, but he kicked into guard when he got to the NFL level.
Yeah, we called that, by the way.
Yeah, so if they can start to run the ball more and really going to see what Cam Ward looks like, because as we did talk about, we like his moxie, but his arm, his not elite arm gets himself in trouble because he takes a lot of plays, and he had to make a lot of plays at Miami with his arm because of the lack of talent that he had. But we're going to have to see how he adjusts. And, given what we've seen from him in videos throughout the last 2 years between him and Shador and the dog, like we just talked about with Baker Mayfield, this is a guy that wants to win, that's going to take the coaching well. And to your point, and probably perhaps some of the reason you're taking the over is that you expect him to start to figure things out. You face Denver, the Rams, Colts, Texans, and the Raiders, Patriots, Colts, Chargers for the first 9 weeks. You can come out with a 500 record there.
There's a few winnable games in there.
Yeah. You can be a game under 500, or you can be at 500.
And then you got to win 3 the rest of the way.
3 the rest of the way. Yeah.
It's not impossible. And I think the offense, like I said, they were 31st last year, but I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that the quarterback position was such a mess.
I'll say this, though, Brad. That second half of the season, they faced Jacksonville twice, and they've got Cleveland and the Saints. So you can win 3 out of those 4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. So you like the over there too then?
Yeah, I actually do like the over there.
Indianapolis Colts. Let's wrap it up with them. The Colts finished 8-9 last season. They had a top 10 defense. Quietly a very good defense. The offensive line is still pretty good. I think the big question mark for this team is still quarterback. But with that being said, don't be surprised if Daniel Jones could actually be a really good fit in this offense. I think this is a coaching staff that's really going to be able to utilize what he does well. If he can give them some stability at that position, I think it could really do a lot for this team. And like I said, this is a team that won 8 games last year with really bad quarterback play. I like the over 7.5. That's kind of a low win total for them. I think this is a team that can get back to 8 wins.
Indianapolis is the team that I think can sneak up on everybody. You talk about Daniel Jones. You talk about Daniel Jones, our friend's favorite quarterback. Daniel Jones is elite, but they have weapons. Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, Anthony Gould. Nobody wants to talk about him, but he did flash. They have some guy. They have some guys that get in Tre'Davious Ward in that secondary. Jalen Jones as well. Latu, if he decides to stay healthy, you add JT Tuimayolo. Hopefully, I said his name correctly in a rotation with Kwity Paye and Latu. This team can really do some things, and if Daniel Jones perhaps can get settled in Shane Steichen's offense, whose offense have seemed to have been working because whoever he's been able to put back there. And don't forget, they have Riley Leonard back there. I can't wait to see what type of packages they're going to include him in. Their first 10 weeks, Miami, Broncos, Tennessee, Rams, Raiders, Cardinals, Chargers, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Atlanta. There's some winnable games there.
This last division might be the best in football. I know this. It's got the best coached division in football, and I don't think that's even debatable right now. Let's start with the Denver Broncos here in the AFC West. Alex, I think this might be the most overlooked team this year. Nobody is talking about the Denver Broncos. They have not a good, but a great offensive line. They have a great defense, one of the best in football. And Bo Nix was a perfect fit in the Sean Payton offense and really had a heck of a rookie year. There is a lot to like about this Denver team, but for some reason, they just seem to be kind of very quietly talked about this offseason. And I'm a little bit bullish on Denver this year. So I'm going to take the over 9.5. I think they make some noise in this division. And I know it's a good division and it's a good conference, but this is a really good football team on paper.
You talked about the really good offensive line. I'm going to talk about their possible no-fly zone that they have there. If you're telling me the reigning defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain, Haifunga stays healthy, Brandon Jones and the rookie Jahdae Barron out of Texas, who I was a guy that I loved. I thought he was the best DB in the draft. If you're telling me you're going to put those guys back there, you're possibly looking at a possible no-fly zone in the back there that can perhaps get some of these frontline guys off. I'm not high on their defense. Dre Greenlaw, even though I spoke about Haifunga hasn't been healthy for 2 years. Dre Greenlaw is still dealing with the injury that he got from the Super Bowl. I'm going to stay consistent on what I've said about Sean Payton. He doesn't run the ball, right? He had Javonte Williams, a guy that was coming off injury. Fantasy alert. J.K. Dobbins is on the team. Draft R.J. Harvey if you can, because R.J. Harvey will be getting a lot of plays because J.K. Dobbins cannot last a full season, and right now he's slotted to be the starter. So I don't look at Denver. I'm not sure what Denver's going to be. I always give credence to if a quarterback starts out good. That second year, he kind of comes back down to earth, the hangover, and perhaps may come back down to earth. I'm not too enamored with their weapons. Okay, I'll take that 9.5. I'll agree and go over. I'll put them at 10 wins.
All right. How about the defending AFC champs, the Kansas City Chiefs here? Now, they won every single close game last year. Look, as great as Mahomes and Andy Reid are, that is not going to happen again. That if you just look at the history of the NFL, that just doesn't happen. It's unheard of what they did. There's definitely a case to be made that they regress this season. Rashee Rice is going to get suspended. He probably misses 6 or 7 games this year. The wide receiver room, even with him, I'd say is average at best. You've got a gadget guy in Xavier Worthy. You got Hollywood Brown, who has never lived up to the first-round billing. Kelsey, just quite frankly, is not the same guy anymore. He's not an impact player at tight end. And quite frankly, this is the truth that people don't want to hear, but Mahomes has played more like a borderline top 10 quarterback the last 2 years, and he has not played like the guy he was early in his career. So I think the team last year, I said it multiple times, that was the worst one-loss football team I have ever seen. They got exposed by the Eagles. Now, the Eagles are a great team, but I think this is the team that skated by all last season. I think they were realistically more like a 10 or 11 win team last year, and they just had so many times where the ball bounced their way. They're 11.5 over-under win total this year. I am hammering the under on this team. I think they take a step back this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them at 11 wins. I know there's a lot of hype around Denver, taking over be the team that takes over that division. I don't think so. I think there's enough coaching and enough Patrick Mahomes pixie dust to go around. Rashee Rice with the suspension, I think it's going to be a 4-game suspension, but I think he's going to come back and step right in. I think him being hurt last year, aside from his off the field issues, I think it did wonders for Xavier Worthy. I think he's a year ahead of schedule in terms of what he could do because he was technically a 9-route guy coming in, right? They weren't expecting a lot. Go ahead.
I don't even know if he was a nine. He's just a gadget guy.
Yeah.
I mean, really, he's a guy that you have to manufacture touches for him. And look, Andy Reid does that as good as anybody. It's not like I don't think they're going to get the ball in his hands, but he's not a dynamic wide receiver who can really run the route tree. He's just a guy that you have to find a way to get the ball to him.
Right, but I think what they did last year was really they had to put more on him because Rashee Rice was, forget again, the off the field stuff. They had to put more on him. So I think he's a year ahead of where they thought he would be in terms of being able to put more on his plate because they were forced to in that sense because Sky Moore wasn't anything. Hollywood Brown got hurt, so he actually had to play a bigger role. But now I don't know if Hollywood Brown is going to be healthy or not. Travis Kelce, another year older, so we don't know what he's going to look like. I did like them bringing in Elijah Smith. I thought that was a dynamic that they were missing that Jared McKinnon had offered the previous year. They locked up George Karlaftis. Chris Jones, another year older. Let's see if he can still maintain and do what he's been doing. Nick Bolton stay healthy, right? Brent Veach, over the past maybe year or 2 years, they've kind of missed on some people, and their depth has gotten real skinny there. So I think to the point where everybody's looking at them to take a step back, and even I am, and we talk about I take the under, but I take the under as 11, under 11 and a half. I still think they come in first, and maybe Denver in second. I don't think Denver's ready to take over yet.
How about your Las Vegas Raiders, Alex? I know you've been excited to talk about these guys. I'm going to say this before I give you the floor here. Big upgrade with the coaching staff and quarterback. I think that much is obvious. Bringing in Pete Carroll, a proven winner, bringing in Chip Kelly, a proven offensive mind, and bringing in Geno Smith, who's at least at worst a competent quarterback where they had major issues under center last year. My only concern with them is I still think the roster is the fourth best roster in this division. And even though I think Geno Smith is a big upgrade, I still think he's easily the fourth best quarterback in this division. So I think it's an uphill battle. If they played in the NFC or in a weaker division, I think this is a team that can make some noise. I think this division is so good, though, that they still could be in trouble. Now, their over-under season win total is 6.5. With that being said, I'm going to take the over, because I do think this is a team that could get to 7 or 8 wins. And this is a team that could finish fourth in this division and, quite frankly, be hands down the best fourth-place team in the NFL. So I think they're that type of team this year, but I just think it's an uphill climb with the rest of the division they're in.
Right, and see that, and that's probably where we disagree. I think the Chargers, and we'll get to them later, I think they have the worst roster in this division, not the league, in this division. Talking about the Raiders now, the running back room, obviously there's a big upgrade there when you bring in Ashton Jennings, and however you feel about Raheem Mostert. Obviously you talk about Geno Smith, and then obviously what Brock Bowers can build on. Michael Mayer back, the best tight end from the previous draft, is now healthy. The offensive line is really where the question is here. There's a lot of rookies in the wide receiver room. Jack Beck could be a under the radar rookie of the year prospect simply because of what he did, and when you start to look at his tape and what he did at the Senior Bowl and what he put on tape in college, I think he might be a steal. I need to see what Chip Kelly has learned from his last stint in the NFL, right? I doubt if we're going to see people running 6-7 second offenses up here for the most part. Maybe he sprinkles that in somewhere, but what has he learned from being in the NFL, going to UCLA, and then being the offensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeye championship team? What has he learned, and what can he do with the weapons that we have here and the quarterback that we have here? Those are the two key things that I need to see.
6.5 wins,
I'm over. I'm taking over.
I did take the over. Like I said, even though I have them finishing fourth in this division, it's not really a knock on them. It's really just a testament to how good the division is. Look at this Chargers team. Even though I love the direction they're headed, I love a lot of the additions they've made, this team is still rebuilding from the nightmare that was Brandon Staley. So it's not going to happen overnight. I like the direction, but the over-under for them is 9.5, which I think is a really interesting win total. I'm going to take the under, even though, like I said, I think it's a really good team. I think they could still get to 9 wins. 8 or 9, I think, is kind of right in the sweet spot of probably where they end up, because the AFC is so good, because the AFC West is so good. They're going to drop some games, but they're going to be a competitive football team.
They tried to sign Mike Williams back. I guess he couldn't pass a physical, or he just can't stay healthy enough, so he's out. So they're back where they started with at the wide receiver position. I mean, Lad McConkey, like you said, solid guy that came into the slot, but they're back with counting on Quentin Johnson. We'll have to wait to see what Trey Harris is. We were both high on Marion Hampton. Adam Mekhi Becton stand next to Joe Alt. Who wants to face those two guys when they decide to pull and run Marion Hampton to that side? To that side
Right.
for the most part.
So, and Rashawn Slater on the other side.
Right,
They might have the best tackle tandem in the league.
Oh yeah. I actually believe that. Philly people will definitely disagree with us, but I definitely believe that. But here's where I get to the issues on defense. Now they've lost a lot on defense. Depending on what you felt about Bosa, they lost on Bosa. Khalil Mack is long in the tooth, so we'll wait to see if he can ramp up and do it again. But this is a team that replaced their entire secondary with the exception of Derwin James. Dante Jackson is now a starter. Anybody? Okay. Taheeb Still was a nice addition last year. He popped out. I think he's probably going to be the starting nickel. Jimmy St. Juice, anybody, is the other starting DB?
Oh.
And I agree. I take the under. Not only do I take the under, I'll go out on a limb because I've been saying for long the Raiders are not coming in last place. This is the team that's going to come in last place.
I could have told you guys, PGF Nation, which way he was going to go with the Chargers. He is a Harbaugh, Herbert hater over here, guys. It doesn't matter what they do. He's taking the under. Their over-under could have been 3.5. He would have taken the under on it. But, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. NFL season over, under, win total projections. Look, we're going to have the NFC episode coming here soon. So, once again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next one.